What's up, filmmakers? Welcome back to another late night live stream. I'm excited to be back on the live stream with you guys. It's been a while. I think it's been a couple months since we've done a live stream. So I'm a little bit rusty, but thank you guys for joining tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about camera gear that's still worth getting versus camera gear that you can really live without. So I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below right now and throughout the live stream here in the chat, what you think is gear that is really worth it and the gear that you purchased that you just don't think is worth it anymore and that you almost never use or touch. Because I know for me, there's just a ton of gear that I never really touch, and sometimes I don't even use it maybe once or twice. That's it in an entire year. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And obviously, you know, it goes without saying, we are in a completely different new studio here. So hopefully you guys watched the previous video that I just posted at the end of last week, all about this new studio build out. And if you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it after the live stream, because I take you on a tour of this whole brand new setup. So it's pretty sweet. Moved a couple months ago, been remodeling a house and remodeling this whole studio, getting it all set up with the lighting grid and everything. So it's really, really exciting stuff, but it's also so time consuming and so much work. So it's awesome to be back though. What's up everyone here in the live stream? Peter Jolly, how's it going? Andre, what's up? Mir Kaimo, I'm sorry, I always butcher everyone's usernames. Loves the lives. Thank you very much. I love doing them, so I'm glad to be back at it. Stephen Kevin says, can you build Hollywood camera? I guess that depends what you define a Hollywood camera as. I mean, a lot of movies have been shot on all different cameras, from DSLRs. I've seen them shot on Canon 5Ds up to, you know, Aris and Alexas. So maybe. Let's see. VCT Webster, what's up? He says, is this gear aimed at video or photo equipment? So mostly we're going to be focusing on video equipment today, but it could be camera stuff as well. Sometimes, you know, you can use a little bit of both, but mostly video stuff. Yeah, so it's awesome to have you all here. So let's start talking about some of it, and we'll just keep going back into the chat as you guys keep talking about different things as well. So what are some top pieces of gear that I have found that just are not worth it? We're going to start with some of the more controversial ones first, and then we'll move into some of the gear that you should have. So let me know what you guys think about this. I think for me, the top number one thing for me personally that I just think is pretty much a waste of money right now, and it's just not something that I would personally use very often, is a GoPro. Now, I know there's a lot of people that use them with action sports and stuff, and they like to strap them to helmets or put them on, you know, racing equipment and cars and things like that. But for me, doing like cinematography and commercial shoots for clients and such, a GoPro is like almost never used ever. I mean, I've had access to dozens of GoPros over the years, and we almost never use them. And I've owned an action camera, and I used it like 2 times ever. So for me, a GoPro is a no-go, and I know they just keep making them. I think we're on like, what, GoPro Hero 9 now? Correct me down in the chat if that's not right. So what do you guys think? Do you own GoPro? Do you like to use them? For me, it's just gear that you can live without personally. It's not something that I ever really need, especially because I don't really do action sports and videography that is along those lines. I guess if I was like filming surfing and stuff, then you absolutely got to have a waterproof camera. But otherwise, it's just not useful. It's way too wide angle, and it just screams GoPro footage when you see it, which usually looks really amateur. So that's something that I can live without. Let me know down in the chat what you guys think about that. Now let's talk about, on the contrary to that, what is a piece of gear that's still worth getting in 2020. So for me, it's definitely going to be a camera that can shoot 4K. I don't think you need a camera right now that can shoot any past that, like 6K or 8K. I've actually done an entire live stream on that. It's really not necessary in my opinion. Yeah, I'm starting to see in the chat now, it's catching up. You guys are all saying, you know, not so much on the GoPro, couple down thumbs. Yeah, I'm glad that some of you guys are agreeing with me here on that, because it is something that it has its spot, I think, in the cinematography world and the video making world, but it's a very small sliver, and it's really not something that if you're like, don't have a lot of money and you're trying to figure out where to spend your budget, I don't think a GoPro is the right spot. Although their marketing is fantastic, and every time a new one drops, you watch all the reviews on it and you're like, man, should I get one? Should I get one this time? And I thought it like every time, like Hero 5, 6, 7, 8. Like I said, I think we're on 9 now, and still no, I'm never gonna buy one. Not that I don't think so. So anyways, back to gear that I think you should own and buy in 2020 right now is, of course, a 4K camera. So hopefully you already have a 4K camera. If not, 1080p is fantastic. Almost everything you watch right now online is delivered in 1080p. You're probably watching this stream in 720p or less because it's coming over the internet. Just like most of the videos that people are consuming online, they're about 720p, 1080p. But I think 4K is definitely worth it, so you can actually zoom in and reframe and all that and get just really good quality video that's going to last through the ages, and you can use it as stock royalty-free footage later down the road and sell it. 4K footage does much better on stock footage sites. Just, you know, you guys, if you're into that, that's something to keep in mind. So yes, and what camera should you get then? I think that's a big question that a lot of people have is, should you get the latest 4K cameras that are coming out, the new Canons, the Canon R5s, and Panasonic is dropping new cameras. Everyone's dropping new cameras. The new Sony a7S III. There's just so many. I can't even name them all. I'm just losing track. The Sony what is it called? The A7C. So many new cameras. And do you need them? Oh yeah, the red Komodo, Andre says. Yes. Oh my gosh. I want it, but is it worth it? Is it worth $6,000 for a red Komodo that shoots 6K when my Blackmagic is sitting back there on the shelf shoots in 6K B-RAW as well? They're similar in their capabilities, but it's not a red, and it costs about a third the price. So man, I really want one though. Red looks beautiful, but I just don't have the money for that. Let me know, what do you guys think? Is it worth getting a red? Are you guys trying to sell your old cameras and get a red Komodo, or are you going to stick with it? So for me, I think gear worth getting is still just a basic camera that can shoot 4K and hopefully in something that's log or kind of a flat picture profile, so you can do some nice color grading on it. That would definitely be a priority for me. So let's check out what's going on in the chat here. Peter Jolly says, similar question, do you think getting the Blackmagic Pocket 4K for my first professional camera is a good idea, or is it overkill? I think it's a fantastic idea. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is pretty affordable. I think it's about $1,300. And if you find it used, which there are a ton used online, you could probably even find one locally that someone's selling like on Facebook or Craigslist or something. I think it's definitely worth picking one up. You're getting really good color science. You get a nice, flat picture profile that you can color grade. It has a 5-inch display on the back. It has really all those good features. B-RAW, which is incredible. You can change the ISO after shooting. Maybe you shot too dark or you shot too bright. Well, you can drop your ISO, raise it up, change the color temperature if you were shooting with indoor tungsten lighting, outdoor by accident. I mean, if you've been looking into these cameras, you already know the capabilities of B-RAW. But yes, I think it's a fantastic camera to start with, and it's very affordable. The only thing is, you are going to have to rig it out a decent amount. I mean, I've made tons of videos on this channel rigging out cameras. Probably a lot of you guys found me through the Sony a7S rig out or one of my other rigging ones. So go check that out if you want to see how to rig out a Blackmagic camera. So that is going to cost you a little bit more. You're going to need a cage. You're probably going to need an external battery source like a V-mount battery, and an external SSD like a Samsung T5, 1 terabyte. So those are probably the biggest priorities with the Blackmagic camera. But other than that extra expense, I think, yes, it's a fantastic camera to go with, especially if you want to be more in like the filmmaking genre and you don't want to focus on photography. If you want to do photography too, do not get a Blackmagic camera. They're not very good for photography, in my opinion. They're just not really set up for it. So hopefully that answers your question. What's up, Samdeep? He says, good morning. Yeah, it's weird. It's morning on the other side of the world, I guess. It's nighttime here. So thanks for joining. LT Productions says, are you getting the Sony FX6? Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I really want that camera. Full frame Sony DNG camera. I think it's really cool. You get dual XLR inputs, just all the features, internal NDs. The real question is, how much is it? Leave a comment down below. have you seen a price for it? Yeah, I see you said, yeah, the specs are released, but I haven't seen any pricing for the Sony FX6 yet. So if it's like $3,000 or sub, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be more about $5,000 for that. The Sony FS5, I think when it first came out, landed in like the $4,000 to $5,000 range with like the whole kit. So probably still out of my price range, but full frame little cinema camera like that, pretty awesome. I might have to check that one out. It's hard to say. It's hard. There's too many cameras to buy. Are you guys struggling with this? This whole video is supposed to be about camera gear that's worth it and camera gear that's not worth it. But I think we all get in that rut where we just get excited about new cameras and we want to get it. So, but no, not right now. I'm not getting it yet. So I know you keep saying the red Komodo. Let's see. VCT Webster says, I want an A7S II and later upgrade to an FX6. Yeah, I mean, the Sony lineup is fantastic right now. They just keep dropping new camera after new camera. Right when I think they've dropped the perfect camera, they drop another one that's even better. I just can't keep up. It's too much. Yeah, so it's me, Raisin. He says, Blackmagic 4K versus Sony A7S III versus Canon M50. Yeah, that's like, those are kind of a little bit of apples to oranges, I would say. So Canon M50, I would only get that if you're looking to be a little bit more on the budget side and save some money. That's definitely a totally different price range than the Sony A7S III, which is like $3,500 and impossible to find right now. I mean, you get on B&H, Adorama, Amazon, like everywhere, it's pretty much on back order. So getting your hands on an A7S III, difficult to do. But if you have the budget, I'd say it's probably the best full frame DSLR, or well, not DSLR, but mirrorless camera that's kind of hybrid for video and shooting photography right now. So yeah, if you have the budget, go for that. I would get that over the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K if you have the budget for it, because it looks like it does have better dynamic range. It just doesn't have all the raw features that you get with B-RAW. So kind of depends on your shooting style, but man, that's a toss-up for me. Peter Jolly says, thanks for the excuse. I've been debating getting the 4K or the OG Pocket 6K, but all the benefits of the 4K make sense. Yeah, don't get the old one. I've shot on that before. It's no good anymore. I'm going to get some flack for that for those that still shoot on it, but the battery life on that is even worse than the battery life on the 4K and the 6K. The screen is smaller. It just has much more limitations. So yes, definitely get the newer one. Try and find maybe the Pocket 4K used if you're on a budget. Don't get the original Pocket camera. I don't think it's worth it anymore, in my personal opinion. So yeah, so let's keep going. I see all the comments popping in here. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And if you're watching on the live stream right now, please be sure to smash the like button. Helps the algorithm, as they say. And be subscribed. If you're watching this live stream right now and you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. Because we got to keep this thing going. So let's talk about another piece of gear that I just don't really think is all that worth it. We talked about the GoPro already. Here's another one that I think is a little controversial, and even me saying it, I hate to say it, but I think that a drone may not be the most worth it thing to buy, especially if you're on a limited budget. So right now, on the back shelf there, I have the Mavic 2 Pro sitting there, and I've got to be honest, I don't fly it nearly as frequently as I want to. Leave a comment down below right now. Are you in the same boat as me? How often do you fly your drone? It's something that's such a specialty tool that it's like, hey, for most of my shoots, I don't really need a drone. Here and there, I need it for, giant establishing landscape shots and that sort of thing. But usually I don't need a drone for most client shoots. It's like interviews, talking head, shooting B-roll of products, all those sort of things. Those are the real paying clients. It's not very frequent that I need the drone shots. Obviously, they're gorgeous. You get those beautiful landscapes, but here and there, maybe an establishing shot for a business. They want like we want a nice shot of our sign or the building, that sort of thing. I think where drones come into place the most in like being useful is with real estate. So if you're doing real estate video work, then yeah, drone is definitely worth it still, because everyone's doing drone shots now of houses and real estate and things like that. So definitely worth it if you're doing a lot of that. And if you're doing a lot of adventure videos, then yes, get a drone. If you do, just online content, maybe you have a YouTube channel or something, then a drone is worth it for traveling and getting all that beautiful footage. But for me, a lot of times I'll go and I'll travel and I'll bring my drone with me because it's small, fits in a backpack, right? But then I'll get all that footage when I'm out, all these gorgeous landscapes or whatever, hiking and stuff, and then I have no use for it. It's like, okay, that was awesome. What do I do with it? Like, it didn't tell a story or anything. So I end up with all this extra footage that just sits on a hard drive and usually dies because I don't post it on videos here on the channel. You guys don't really care about just seeing endless drone videos, that just go on forever. And sometimes they can sell stock footage here and there, but not that frequently. So a drone is one of those things that I don't think 100% you gotta have if you don't have the budget for it. And if you do have the budget for a new camera, maybe a drone isn't the right thing, but a second camera might be more helpful for you in a shoot. So tell me what you guys think about that. All right, let's go back to the comments here, see what's going on. So Hassan says, I think any camera you can change its lenses is perfect for a beginner. Yes, if you're just starting out and you can, get a camera, of course, just a camera body that allows for interchangeable lenses, because it's going to allow you to get so many different types of shots and really change the look of your stuff. Maybe you can upgrade from a cheap like Nifty 50 to a nicer camera or a nicer lens, that is going to give you a much better picture quality without ever changing out the body, because half of your image is just in the lens. So yes, get something with an interchangeable lens, not one that has, a built-in zoom lens or something, if you can afford it. So what's up, Bear Studios? Good evening. How you doing? Steven says, where you live? I am in Arizona, representing. It was a warm day today, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's almost Thanksgiving and it's still really hot out. So Bear Studios says price will be announced tomorrow. I think you're talking about the FX6. So I hope the price drops tomorrow, and I hope it's affordable because I would love to get my hands on that. Sandeep says will be priced around maybe 5,000 to 6,000. Yeah, it really could be. I think it's probably going to be about $5,000. The hard part about that, so the Sony FX6 at $5,000, do you get that or do you get the red Komodo for $6,000? I know you got to rig that one out way more. You don't get the built-in ND filters and all the stuff for mounting all the different accessories on it. The Sony's definitely more of the full package. It's really good. Any of the Sony lineups, like the Sony FS5, the FS7, are fantastic for run and gun filmmaking, documentary work, that kind of stuff. And the red, it can do all of that stuff as well, but just out of the box, it's not so built out. So you're going to spend a lot more money. So that's a toss-up for me, man. Both cameras are awesome. I'd love to get both. But it's not going to happen. Let's be honest. My wife would not let it happen. So, all right. Jacob, he says, I'll tell you what, I follow cameras and love learning them, but I think the truth of industry is do work and seize purchasing opportunities. I got my GH5 from a friend who got into Reds. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I think doing this kind of work and being around other filmmakers, you get opportunities like that. People are offloading gear all the time that they don't use anymore. So it sounds like you swept up a good deal on your GH5. I buy half of my cameras used all the time because I go through them and they upgrade so frequently that I try to find them used when I can, because it just saves you a lot of money. So William says, prefer the Blackmagic 4K, much more flexible than so many other cameras. Yeah, it's super flexible with B-RAW. We were talking about that just earlier. Fantastic camera. So many different features. So, all right. So many comments to keep diving through here, and I want to keep going on our topic as well. So take a quick look back down here. He says, as he makes money and grows, he sells to me for cheap. Okay, so he's talking about his friend. Jacob's talking about his friend who has upgraded to the Red. So yeah, sells you gear for cheap. That's awesome. Like I said, great way to get gears from other filmmakers that aren't using it anymore. So Dead Duck says, what do you think about the buttery LUTs? I freaking love them. So the buttery LUTs, I use them on my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and I also use those LUTs on the Fujifilm X-T4. Fantastic LUTs. If you guys are looking for like really standard LUTs, and you're not, and I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, or have any affiliation. I think it's Mateo. I can't say his name ever. Mateo Batoyo. Oh, that's terrible. Anyways, whatever. He makes the buttery LUTs, and they're so good. They kind of have like an airy look to them. They're natural. He calls them like his natural Rec 709. and they just do a fantastic job. I throw them on a lot of my flat, log footage, and it just makes it look so much better, and then I tweak from there. So yes, highly recommend the Buttery LUTs. They're super cheap. I think they're like $30 or something. You have to buy them per each camera, which is a bit of a bummer because every time I get a new camera, I keep buying his LUTs over and over. I just want to get like a pack of all of them, but yeah. All right, so things that are useful. I talked about the last thing that I don't think is as worth getting anymore, which is a drone, unless you're in certain situations. Let's talk about some useful things again. So I said, any 4K camera. The next thing I would say, this is so basic, but a good fluid head tripod. So if you're still shooting on a cheap like Amazon Basics tripod or something, trust me, invest in a good tripod. It's going to be a worthy upgrade for you because having a nice fluid head is going to give you beautiful, smooth pans, tilts, everything like that. And it's just going to be much more reliable for your camera. So I know it's the basics, but it's definitely something worth buying if you don't have a good tripod already. Awesome ones for my footage. You can check out my reviews of them on the channel. Same with Benro. I've done reviews of those. They're more budget-friendly fluid head tripods that are absolutely worth it. So what's another piece of gear that I just don't think is really something that you have to have? You could probably live without. And again, this might be a little controversial because I know everyone buys this lens, but a 14 millimeter lens or a super wide angle lens like 12 millimeters, 10 millimeters, probably not the most necessary or useful lens to have because it just ends up looking so fish-eyed and warped and bendy, and it just doesn't look flattering on the face. It just does weird things to the human face. So I remember when I first started out, one of the very first lenses I bought besides a nifty 50 millimeter lens was a super wide angle 14 millimeter Rokinon lens. And I just thought, man, this is so cool. Look, I can see everything. And then as I progressed and got better and better at doing video work, I realized like, whoa, you don't just want the widest lens ever that can see everything because you really want to direct the viewer's eye to certain things and you want things to look more natural, not so warped and bendy and almost like a GoPro look. So yeah, super wide angle lens, I think is something that you can live without. Think about it to yourself, when's the last time you touched that really wide angle lens? And if you haven't used it in a long time, maybe it's time to sell it and upgrade to a different lens that you're going to use more frequently. So yeah, all right, let's jump back into the comments, see what's going on with you guys. All right. Bear Studios just subbed. Love your videos. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Like I said, hit sub if you guys aren't subbed right now. So VTC says, I have to agree with you. It's good for establishing shots and some interesting B-roll, but aside from that, it's really hard to justify the purchase, at least for my use. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the drone. Okay. Yes, exactly. Great for establishing shots, but not like super useful for just normal video things. It's very specific, almost like the GoPro. Drones, aerial footage, they're very specific. They have their place in cinematography, but it's still very slim. It's not the norm. So Peter Jolly says he was able to get a Phantom 2 with a gimbal GoPro for only $100 last year, although I haven't really done anything with it. I think I'll still keep it since I have it. Geez, yeah, that's crazy. $100 for a GoPro and a gimbal and a Phantom? That's insane. That's unheard of. I mean, for $100, I can't even imagine getting one of those items, maybe, depending on which model it is. So that's awesome. It's funny, though, you say you haven't even used them. And that's what I've been talking about already on this live stream is like, what gear can you kind of live without? And it's like, hey, I've got all these things, but I don't use them that frequently. So that's funny. All right. Bear Studio says, I'm thinking of getting the Mavic Mini 2, or would you suggest the Mavic Air 2 for more money? That's a hard one. Again, why do you want to buy a drone? So think about that. What are you going to use it for? Do you do a lot of like traveling and you just want to get a lot of beautiful landscapes? Do you do a lot of real estate footage where you have to get like houses and big shots like that? It may not even be worth it. But I think if you're just kind of getting it for fun and you're going to use it here and there, probably start off with the more budget thing. I would probably start with the Mavic Mini, the Mavic Mini 2. I think it's like $450, something like that. $450, maybe $500 on DJI's website. Maybe start with that and see how you like drone footage, see how much you use it. And if you use it a lot and you need to upgrade your quality, maybe upgrade to the Mavic Air or the Mavic 2 Pro or whatever it is, but start off with something that's a little bit more affordable and then go up from there if you need to. You can always sell it. It's a brand new drone. So yeah, I would definitely think though that it's a very specialty item. So who knows, you may or may not need it. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Andre says maybe you should make a video about shooting dialogue scenes. I personally think those could be tricky with just one camera. Yeah, so yeah, I've been wanting to make one about shooting dialogue scenes for a while now, but it's always hard for me to round up like actors and people to just like sit in and do that, because I do most of this video work on the side. I work a full-time job at a studio shooting sometimes day and night, doing all different kinds of stuff. So it just keeps me so busy, but I would love to do that, talk about shooting dialogue scenes. But you can absolutely shoot dialogue scenes with just one camera. In fact, most movies that you watch are shot oftentimes with one camera, and like a lot of the Netflix shows are also single camera shoots. I mean, and let me say that correctly. So sometimes they have multiple cameras on set, and that's common because they want a backup camera in case, they're on this $1 million shoot, not million, but millions and millions of dollars, multi-million dollar shoot. And if the camera goes out and everyone's there, the talent, all the crew, everything's rented, and the camera goes out, then they're screwed. So of course they have cameras on backup as well, but usually it's a single camera shoot on like a lot of the things that you're watching on Netflix and movies. Basically, for those dialogue scenes, let's say it's a dialogue scene between two people. Let's say what's frequent is they'll shoot a master shot first. So basically you got the two people talking, and maybe you can see both of them in the shot. They're talking, they run through all their dialogue. Maybe they do it a couple times, most likely a couple takes. And then once you have that, you're like, okay, we got a great master, good acting, whatever, everything worked great. Then they'll change the camera, obviously change the camera for possibly most basic and over the shoulder shot, right? Looking at, talent one, looking at the girl. And then she'll run through all of her lines, and then they'll cut and they'll switch to the other side, get an over the shoulder looking at the guy, let's just say, for example, and get all of his lines, maybe do a couple takes, getting good facial expressions and emotion and everything, good delivery out of him, and cut. And then all the magic happens later in the edit. So a lot of times, when you haven't been doing this for a really long time, or people that don't know anything about video, they'll watch a movie or television show and they'll think, wait, where's the camera? How did I was just looking at him and then her, where did they hide the camera? And it's like, the camera wasn't hidden anywhere. They shot this scene multiple times from all different angles. So yes, you can do dialogue scenes, like full dialogue scenes with 5 people, 10 people, whatever it is, with just one camera. It just means you got to do a lot of takes. You got to pick up your sticks, reframe, move the camera all over the place, get your boom operator over there, whatever it is. So yes, you can do a ton of this kind of work with just one camera. So I don't think that's something that you got to buy multiple cameras from. Now, there are some shoots that, yes, they'll do 3 cameras. They'll do a master and both over the shoulders, and they'll just frame all the cameras out of it, and they'll just do a couple takes, and they'll get it all in that, in those takes, instead of moving the camera multiple times. But it's way more expensive. You have to have way more cameras on site, way more lens packages on site, and all that sort of things. It just increases the cost of production. So a lot of times they'll just have that one main camera, so they won't be rolling on 2 or 3 cameras all at once. It just depends. Obviously, if it's like action scenes, I'm having trouble speaking here, like a Michael Bay film, he'll have 10 cameras rolling at once, 15 cameras rolling at once. If you watch like behind the scenes on that, it's insane. They'll have so many cameras rolling. They'll have wides, tights on all the different talents so you can get all the explosions, because guess what? It's really expensive. Explosives, blowing up freaking Ferraris and planes and things like that, like he does. It's not all CGI. Of course, Transformers are, but everything else, right? A lot of times it's real, and they only get one chance to blow all that stuff up. So they have all the cameras rolling, every possible angle, cameras that are strapped to different things. Like the red Komodo is supposed to be like a crash cam, although it's $6,000. Like, who cares if it blows up? So they'll roll on all those cameras simultaneously. So yeah, of course, depending on what the shot is, there might be multiple cameras running at once, not just one. So kind of going down on a tangent here, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Or it kind of answers your questions about how you can do a dialogue scene with just one camera usually. So, all right, back to the chat. What are you guys doing? So he says, Peter Jolly says, have you ever used light meters? We used them in school a little bit, and I found one for cheap, but I don't know how much pros use them. So Yes, I do use a light meter here and there, but not super frequently. Honestly, the light meter that I've used the most is the one that plugs into the bottom of your phone. And I think it's called the Lumu. Yeah, the Lumu light meter. I actually need to buy one because I've just been borrowing my friends here and there on different shoots. And it works great. The biggest thing that I like about it is when I'm out shooting, like let's say I go to a building and we're shooting indoors and I don't know what color temperature the light bulbs are. It's fantastic because it has color temperature reading on it, so I can just hold it up and see, oh, those fluorescent lights are like 4,000 Kelvin, so I can match my other lights, you know, that are by color to the overhead lights or whatever it is if I have to leave them on, especially in an office situation or something. And of course, it's good for getting readings to know what your exposure is on the talent's face. But I don't use a light meter as much as I want to. I would love to use it more. Can you live without it? I would say that's what this stream has been about today, right? Camera gear worth getting versus what you can live without. I think you can live without a light meter for the most part, but if you know how to use them and it's something that you really want to invest in, definitely go for it. But they kind of get expensive, like $300-$400, maybe $500 depending on what you're getting. So I think it's something that you could probably live without. I'm going to put it in that category, but it may be worth getting if you really want to get deep into lighting and ratios and everything like that. And like, oh, okay, this is a 2-to-1 ratio on their face, that whole sort of thing. So totally up to you. Let's see. Ricky Morgan says, what would you consider to be the widest lens that you need to have? 16, 24, 35, something like that. Okay, that's a little bit of a loaded question. It depends on what kind of camera you're shooting on. So are you shooting on a crop sensor like an APS-C? Or are you shooting on full frame? Or are you shooting on a micro four thirds? So depending on what it is, you definitely need different lenses. I'd say that a 16 millimeter is a fantastic go-to lens for APS-C. That's what I'm shooting on right now. And you can see like my whole office studio behind me on the 16 millimeter because it's the equivalent of like about a 24 millimeter on a full frame. So on a full frame, I think 24 millimeters is a great lens and probably about as wide as you need to go. There may be some scenarios like if you're shooting real estate or in a small room that you need to get wider than that. 35 millimeter, I wouldn't consider a wide angle lens at all. I'd say that's a very medium. 35, 50, that's pretty medium. So wouldn't put it in that category. So it just depends what kind of sensor you're shooting on, Ricky. So let me know in the comments down below what you're shooting on, and that might help us decide what lens is good, a good wide angle to have. So Noodle Knocker, that's a new username for me there. So it says a speed booster for Blackmagic 4K and Canon 50 millimeter. So I don't use speed boosters. I've actually never owned one. I've had some friends that use them and that sort of thing, but don't typically use them. I know the most popular one is the Metabones. It's also the most expensive. It's like $400, but I think you kind of pay for what you get with that. I know that gives you a little bit wider field of view, more of the full frame look on the Pocket 4K. So yeah, I think if you're into that, definitely go for it. I just don't frequently use those. All right, so JP, what's up? He says, I got the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K and the Sigma 24-70 and the 24 millimeter art lens. What's the next best lens you would recommend? I shoot a lot of handheld. Oh, that's cool. So the Pocket 6K, awesome. I also own that camera, really like it. And the Sigma 24-70 millimeter is a really good standard basic lens that you don't ever have to take off, right? I see a lot of guys use that lens. I used to own, wasn't the Sigma, what was it? A Tamron 24-70. Really good lens. I really liked it on a full frame sensor, but when I got it on crop sensor lens or a crop sensor camera on the Pocket 6K, the 24 millimeters was just a little bit too tight for me. So I think that's equivalent of about 38 millimeters on a full frame, which I'd say is very medium. It's not wide angle at all. So I would say for you, what's a good lens to get next? Get a wide angle lens. The widest you can go right now is a 24 millimeter on your Pocket 6K. Get a 16 millimeter Rokinon lens if you can. I fly with that all the time on my Pocket 6K. It's the Rokinon 16 millimeter Cine DS lens. You can watch a couple videos on my channel where I use that lens, and that gives you about a 24 to 28 millimeter wide angle lens field of view. So that's what it looks like you need, especially if you're doing a lot of handheld work. It's really nice to shoot wide angle because it's going to be much more steady looking. because you're not so zoomed in, because you already have all the way up to 70 millimeters and you have a good 24 millimeter lens. So get something that's even wider, I think, than your 24 millimeter. That would be a great place to start. So let's see. Yeah, Peter Jolly says for dialogue scenes, just shoot one angle, then the next, then the next. Yeah, exactly. You can basically, they call it getting coverage. So you get all the different angles, the wides, the extreme close-ups and everything. You just have to move the camera and do the scene multiple times. It can get a little bit difficult in editing when you're just shooting with one camera and putting it all together, because the talent may say something a little bit different and then it's hard to match up with the other character, that sort of thing. But as long as the performance is good, it's easy to match up. All right, so Josh Jones says, for anyone wondering what that is, it's called blocking. Yeah, and blocking also in like directing. As a director, you walk out the blocking, which is basically like how the camera, like where the camera's going to be, where the actors are going to be, how it's all going to kind of go out through the whole thing, you know, from moving from point A to point B and where the camera's going to be. That's also called blocking. So awesome. All right, trying to get through all the comments here. He says, I want you to read my message. I can't speak English. I'm interested in motion graphics, and I want motion graphics lessons. Yeah, so I'm not a motion graphics professional. There are a lot of channels out there that do a ton of motion graphics, so definitely go check those out. Sorry, I don't have a good answer for you on that. I use a lot of plugins and different things that I can just manipulate and get what I need. At work, we have a motion graphics guy that does everything for us, and After Effects does a fantastic job. We do a lot of like Cinema 4D and that sort of stuff, but other guys do that. I focus more on the camera, the lighting, more than the like 3D rendering stuff. Not as good at, not super great at that stuff. So, all right, so many comments coming in. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit subscribe right now and smash the like button if you haven't already. Let's keep going. So what's some more gear that I just don't think is super worth it? We kind of covered a lot of them already. The GoPro, the drone, the wide angle lens, and kind of on a similar vein to that, I don't want to go too deep into this, but a macro lens. It's a very specialty lens, and it's something that you don't use all that frequently, most likely. So if you've been kind of teetering on, should I get a macro lens? Should I not? Well, if you do a lot of product videography or product photography, go ahead, get a macro lens. Let's say you're shooting like a lot of small items like jewelry or something, or just little things that you need a macro lens for, definitely go for it. Otherwise, it's something that you pull out here and there. We have a macro lens at work. I haven't bought one personally because I almost never need it. And when I do, you can use extension tubes that you put on your lens to do macro, or you can do a reverse mount lens, which is basically you literally turn your lens around. So I'll grab a lens here for an example. So instead of mounting this onto the camera like normal, you literally mount it backwards. So this part attaches to the camera and then it's looking that way. And that'll give you a macro effect. It's very strange, but you can buy those cheap adapters on Amazon for like $10 and it allows you to mount your lens backwards, a reverse mount. And then you have a macro lens for pretty much free. You just need the adapter. So if you're interested in that, check it out on my channel. It's like a macro, I call it like reverse macro lens mount or something like that on the channel. It's like a year or so ago. Anyway, so macro lens, probably not something that you absolutely have to have. And they're very expensive. They're usually at least $800 or more. And that's for like a budget one. So that's something I think you can live without. Spend your money instead on a more standard lens that you're going to use more frequently. If you just have a lot of money to spare and you just want to buy lenses and gear left and right, by all means, go out and buy this stuff. But I think if you've been teetering on the fence about it, it's probably something you don't have to have. I've thought so many times like, man, I should buy a macro lens. I should buy a macro lens. And then I just never buy it because I'm like, I'm not going to use it that frequently. And same with like the probe lens from Laowa. It looks so cool. I have some friends that have it and I've played around with it and shot with it, but it's not something that you're going to use very frequently. You see a lot of YouTubers using it for like really close detail shots on like gear and things like that. And it looks awesome. But for clients and such, you're probably not going to find that you're using a probe lens that frequently. So, all right, back to the comments here. Victor says, do you recommend the Sony E-mount 18 to 135 OSS for everyday vlogging with an A6400? That's a great question. I have used that lens, the 18 to 135. Is that the F4 one? I'd have to look it up. If it's the F4 lens, maybe not, but it just kind of depends. But for vlogging, that's a great like mid-range lens to be using. So let's see. Are you guys? I think I might have lost you guys. Oh, there we go. The stream dropped there for a second. So I said no data, and that kind of freaked me out. So let me know. Can you guys still see and hear me, or did it totally blip there for a second? Sorry about that. I'm supposed to have really good internet. I just upgraded to like basically what is it called? Gigabit internet. So it's like supposed to be 1,000 megabits down and like 30 something megabits up, which is decent. I wish I had fiber here. So sorry about that blip. Hopefully everything's still good. Let me know if you can see and hear me still. So, all right, back to some comments here. All right. I can't read that username, but ACHRAF says, best dialogue scene, need to shoot with 3 cameras because to get the best clean conversation. So yeah, if you can afford 3 cameras or you can afford to rent 3 cameras, shooting with 3 cameras for a dialogue scene is obviously a fantastic way to do it because the conversation is going to edit together perfectly. I would say that when I'm doing client work, and it's not like a dialogue scene, for like acting something out, but we're doing client interviews where 2 people are sitting down and they're interviewing each other, kind of like a news conversation or something. 3 cameras is a must. We always have a master wide shot and then 2 over the shoulder shots of each of the people speaking. And then, you're rolling on all 3 of them at the same time. You can line them all up in your editor and quickly switch between cameras and get whatever angle you need for whoever's speaking. So yeah, that definitely makes it the easiest to do. But it's expensive to own all those or to rent all them. So, all right. Let's see here. Matt Luck, what's up? He says, I want to buy a film camera, but I'm not sure what I should get. Do you have any recommendations? Thanks. Okay, so, I mean, again, that's such a loaded question. Like, what film camera? It depends. What's your budget? First off, that's the biggest thing. And what do you shoot? So depending on how much money you have to spend on a camera and what kind of work you do, I could give you a better recommendation. So leave a comment below, Matt, and I'll try to give you a little bit more direction there. What's up, Juan? He says, hey, from Mexico, 2 questions. What would you recommend? Updating from the A7R3 to A7R4? And what book would you recommend for filmmakers? Yeah, so upgrading from A7R3 to A7R4, I'm not totally sure. I'd have to like literally look that up and see what the new specs are, but I'm imagining that it's not a massive upgrade. Usually Sony, between each of those cameras, it's like, oh, the autofocus is a little better and it has a little bit better battery life or this and that. I don't think that I would probably upgrade between those 2. If you're going to do an upgrade and you're doing a lot of video work, I'd probably upgrade to the A7S III. Personally, the A7R4 is great if you're doing a lot of photo work. So just depends on what kind of work you do. What book would you recommend? Really good books I got sitting back there on my shelf. It's called Master Shots. Look that up. I'll put it down in the comments here. It's called Master Shots, and it's a fantastic book. There's a whole series of them, and basically it just shows you a great way to frame up all different types of things, fight scenes, dialogue scenes like we were just talking about, chase scenes, all different types of things, and it's visual. Like, I know you guys are all visual learners. I'm a visual learner, so it's almost all pictures of different ways to frame up a camera, where to put the camera, how to move the camera, all that sort of thing. It's actually, basically blocking like we were talking about earlier on the stream. So yes, check out Master Shots. I love it. I have all 3 books, and they're just a great visual guide for how to basically shoot, dialogue, movies, television, that sort of thing. And it's from professionals that have been doing it for years. So check that one out. Peter Jolly says, how do you feel about vintage lenses versus new lenses? I love vintage lenses when I'm able to use them. So the Helios 444 or not 444, but the Helios 44 or the Helios 42, those are obviously like the most popular vintage lenses in the videography world. And they're like 70 to 80 bucks used on eBay. And sometimes you can find them for 50 or 60 bucks. Just kind of depends on where you live and if you have to pay for shipping. So if you want to get into vintage lenses, that's probably the best first one to go for. I'll type it down in the chat here. I'm sure you guys have already all heard of it, the Helios 442. It's fantastic. A great way to start. But the problem with vintage lenses is, of course, you're getting all that beautiful, interesting characteristics, different lens flares, that beautiful swirled bokeh, whatever kind it is. but they do have some issues, like usually they have more chromatic aberrations. So there may not be as good lens coatings on it. So you get weird colors and weird like fringing around, different things that are lit. So there's going to be a lot more flaws in vintage lenses, and they're not as good for cinema usually because they don't have gears on them. So if you want to be shooting things with more of like follow focuses and things like that, then you need, gears on there. And a lot of times it's hard to get a gear ring around those and make it work super good with your setup. So I have found that to be a little bit of a limitation for me. But yes, vintage lenses, of course, look beautiful. And if I could shoot on any vintage lenses, they'd be like, vintage anamorphic lenses that like movies used to be shot on for film, and some of the biggest movies are still shot on them, or like rehoused anamorphic vintage lenses. So that's probably what I would go for. All right, still diving in here. So Farouk, what's up? He says it's 3 a.m. here in Ghana, but I know it's worth staying up late to catch the live stream. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. 3 a.m. That's pretty late. You should probably go to bed soon. Hopefully you don't have work early in the morning, but thank you so much for catching the live stream with us. Zachary Bennett, what's up? He says, does anyone use an 8mm on APS-C? It ends up about 12 millimeter equivalent, and I'm tempted to rent one. Yeah, Zach. Personally, I wouldn't do it. It depends. Are you shooting like skateboard videos and like really high action things where you need like crazy wide angle? 12 millimeters gets really extreme. Even on an APS-C lens, like APS-C camera, I think it's a little wide personally. It starts to get very bendy and warpy. So it could be cool though, if you're looking for a specific look, but it's probably not a good go-to lens to use frequently. I'd probably stick with more about 16 millimeters on an APS-C. That's really as wide as I ever want to go. That's what I'm shooting on right now. It's a good wide angle lens. You can see the whole room. But if you go down below that, like 14 millimeters and 12, 10, it just starts to get way too wide and starts to look a little strange. It's a little bit too specialty for my taste. So totally up to you though. Yeah, JP says, thanks for the advice about the 16 millimeter. Yes, get the one with T stops. So it is T 2.8 or 2.5, I believe, on that one. So yes, get that one. That one's great. Robin says, hey, just saying hi. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks for stopping by. All right. Jonah Beetle says, opinion on the Z-Cam. I'm an LA-based DP and wanted another opinion. Yeah, Jonah, I haven't used the Z-Cam yet personally, and I've talked about this on live streams in the past. Here's my thing. I don't think that the Z-Cam is quite ready for, mainstream videography work yet. I think it's like they've had a couple iterations and they keep updating and changing them, and they're getting better and better. But for me personally, I wouldn't invest my hard-earned money into a Z-Cam just yet. I think they have maybe a few more iterations or versions to go. I think they're still kind of a baby or young, I guess you could say, in the camera making world, whereas opposed to Sony, Canon, Panasonic, Fuji, people who've been doing it for 50 years, 100 years, some of them, they're making really great cameras. And I think the Z-Cam is just still a little bit too early for me. I know they're saying they have a lot of great features. You're getting RAW and all these different capabilities, but they're not all like thought out super well yet. I know the software can be a little bit clunky and it's hard to edit their Z RAW and those sort of things. So I don't think that I would get it personally. Maybe get the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K or 6K if you're looking for something with a little bit of those RAW capabilities. What I do love about the Z-Cam is its body. I think that, 2x2 kind of shape, square cube is really cool. Great for rigging out, great for gimbal work. Man, if you can afford a red Komodo, I'd get that. But again, very expensive. All right, Ricky says, what's more important, the tripod or the fluid head? Which would you spend the most money on? That's a good question. I would spend the most money between those two on the fluid head. Most tripod legs, as long as you're not buying the cheapest like Amazon Basics one, are going to do the job, especially with like a mirrorless or DSLR camera. It's not going to be like, the legs are going to support that camera. Unless you're shooting on a really big, fully rigged out like Sony FS7 or Red or Arri or something like that, you're not going to need like the most girthy, strongest legs in the world. But you do want a good tripod head so you can get really nice, smooth pans and tilts and everything like that. So yes, I would go for a good fluid head, and then maybe you can upgrade the legs later on. So thank you guys all so much for watching. We still got a lot to talk about here and unpack. It's great to see so many viewers up late with me tonight. Please hit subscribe right now if you're not already subscribed to the channel, because there's so many more videos coming out, and I'm just really excited to be in the new studio space with you guys. Please hit subscribe right now and smash the like button. They say it helps the algorithm, so I'm gonna keep saying it. All right. Let's get back to a couple other things here. There's so many great chats coming in. It's so hard to keep up. I'm going to get to them. Let's talk about a few more things that I think may or may not be necessary. And this could be controversial, but what's some camera gear that you can live without? And this one, it's hard to say. I know some of you guys use it all the time, but I'm going to say it. And I think one of those things is a shotgun microphone. I said it. I've said it before on the channel, but a shotgun microphone, probably not the most useful thing that you have to use all the time. And what I'm talking about is the Rode shotgun microphones, or there's a couple different companies that, there's dozens of companies that make them, but basically an onboard shotgun microphone, not that useful. And here's why. Most of the time, whatever you're shooting is too far away from you for that microphone to do a good job. It ends up just being ambient scratch audio. And the more you turn it up, the more you bring up the noise level, and you get like cars and AC units running and babies crying in the background. So shotgun microphones, not that useful. They're really not. Most of the time on professional shoots, using a lavalier or using a boom mic. You're getting the boom mic right over your talent, or you have a lav on them, either hidden or showing, depending on, whether it's broadcast or narrative work. So yeah, I don't think a shotgun microphone is that worth it. The only place that I would really find it useful is if I'm doing talking head by myself, basically vlogging, and I want a camera, and I want the microphone mounted on top of the camera because I'm holding it up like this, and my mic is literally like a foot from my mouth. Then the audio quality is going to sound fantastic. Like right now, my microphone is like 6 inches from my mouth, and it sounds good. It sounds rich. But if I come back here, then it starts to not sound so good. It starts to get really echoey. And so that's the same thing with any microphone. So if you have an onboard shotgun microphone on top of your camera and you think it's going to get the best audio ever because you spent like $250 on a Rode one, wrong. It's not going to do super great. So sorry to say it. I get a lot of flack for that in my camera builds. People are always like, where's the mic? Where's the mic? Bruh. If you're shooting with a shotgun microphone on top of your camera still, why? It's no good. You never use that audio. The only place where I would use it is if I'm filming an event and I need like ambient crowd cheers and everyone going, whoa, yeah, we love it, or whatever. And I'm going to use that in like basically a recap of the live event, basically a sizzle reel of what happened that night. Or maybe if I was shooting a wedding or something and I want everyone cheering and applauding for the bride and groom or whatever it is, then yes, I would use that microphone. But otherwise, not so much. Not the most useful thing ever. So let's get back to the comments. See what's going on here. So VCT Webster, he says, how important is a good expensive field monitor right now? I have a 7-inch newer that I got for like $90. Yeah, so if your newer monitor is doing the job for you, then yeah, you probably don't need to upgrade to a better monitor. I actually bought, I think it was a newer as well, that was 7-inch monitor as my first external monitor, and I really liked it. It did a really good job. But let me put it this way. I did end up selling that newer monitor and buying a much better one because it didn't have all of the capabilities that I needed basically for setting exposure. So, I'm using zebras, false colors, scopes, all those types of things. And a lot of the budget ones don't have that. And if they do, they're really difficult to get to. You're like diving through menus deep down to actually get to those settings. And that just wastes so much time on set. Whereas when you have a nice touchscreen one like the Atomos Ninja 5 or the Small HD Focus 5, all those are touchscreen, really easy to get to all the different menu settings, and they just work really well. So if you're looking to upgrade, I would suggest one of those two that I just mentioned. But if you don't use all those tools and you just want to see your general framing and your general like exposure and shot, then yeah, the $90 newer one will do a great job. You don't have to upgrade it. Your Best Friend Productions, he says, I bought a Ronin M, realized how bad it was, and I'm trying to sell it now. He says, I ordered the new Ronin SC2. Yeah, it's 2020. The Ronin M for me goes into the gear you can live without section, just like this live stream is all about. We have a Ronin M at work, and I swear it's been in the Pelican for like years, and we almost never crack it open unless we like absolutely have to. I hate that gimbal. I know it was a great starter. It was groundbreaking when it came out. Everyone got the Ronin M, and I know this might be controversial, but I don't think it's really it's not a good gimbal anymore. It's like holding it like this, and it's wobbly, and it gives you the shakes a little bit too much, and you can never set it down. You literally have to carry a stand with you to be able to set it down. So it's a pass for me on the Ronin M. The Ronin S was the best thing they ever did because it has that little tripod legs. It's single grip. It's light. It's nimble. It's a nimble gimbal. So I love it. So yes, the Ronin SC2, I think that's going to be awesome. Great little travel gimbal. I think you made the right choice. Get rid of that Ronin M. See if you can sell it off for $100 or something. All right. Aiden, what's up? He says, what do you think about using Metabones to use Canon EF lenses in the Sony A7R III? Again, I don't use Metabones. I know it's one of the better adapters out there, but it's also the most expensive. It's like $300 to $400. For me personally, when I'm adapting Canon EF glass to Sony cameras, which I do frequently, I put Canon glass on my Sony cameras all the time. I just use some pretty cheap adapters. One of them, I think, was like $15 because almost all my lenses are manual. So I don't need access to autofocus or being able to change the aperture electronically or in-body or image stabilization on the lens or anything like that. So I'm just using cheap $15 ones to put Canon EF glass on Sony. I don't need the Metabones. If you need the electronics, maybe you need that. But honestly, you can get a good adapter for like, I think about $100, $150. There's a bunch of different companies that make them. Maybe try one of those out first. I think it's called Comlight, something like that. That makes an adapter that's much cheaper than Metabones. So check that out. See if you can save some money. And guess what? Amazon has free returns. So if you live in a country where you have Amazon and you can do free returns, buy it, try it. If it doesn't work with your lens, boom, send it back, get your money back, and then buy the Metabones. What a great world we live in, right? Awesome. All right. Man, there's just too many comments. I do want to get to everyone's. I'm going to get to this super chat. Thank you so much, Aram, for the super chat. He says, thoughts on anamorphic lenses or adapters? I love anamorphic lenses. They're freaking the coolest lenses out there, in my opinion, but they're insanely expensive. They're almost impossible to own. Even the cheapest ones are like way out of budget. I've done a video on this channel reviewing the Atlas anamorphic lenses, and those are like $8,000 to $9,000 a piece, which is just too much money. I can't afford those. And I know most guys that even shoot on those don't own them. They rent them. Like the Buff Nerd, dude's awesome. He lives here in Arizona, makes great content. He doesn't even own the Atlas anamorphics, but he shoots on them frequently. He just rents out the kit. We've probably rented the same kit. There's only like one kit here in Arizona. We probably rented the same exact kit. Great lenses to shoot on when you need them. Vazen is making good anamorphic lenses, but they're only for micro four thirds, which I don't shoot on. If you shoot on the Pocket 4K or GH5, go for it. But still, $4,000 is a ton of money. $3,000 to $4,000 is a ton of money to spend on just one lens, and you're not getting like tons of different focal lengths with that. And then of course you have the Siru anamorphic lenses, which now they have two, I believe. I think they have the 35 millimeter and a 50 millimeter, which is a good start. This is a great thing to see. We want to see more companies making anamorphic lenses that are affordable. And by affordable, I mean sub $1,000. Anything beneath $1,000 usually is more affordable for a lens. If it's above that, it starts to get really expensive. So please, Siru and everyone else listening, or hopefully send this video to them, clip this out. Rokinon, please make anamorphic lenses. We will buy them. I promise you, thousands of people will buy them. About 100 people watching this live stream will buy them. Please make them. So yes, hopefully that answers your question. As far as anamorphic adapters, I don't really use them. I think they're usually more gimmicky, and they just give you a look that is trying to get there, but they're much more gimmicky. So no, I don't really use anamorphic adapters. All right. So let's see. Mir Kaimo says, I love the book Master Shots. Yes. Someone else on here that's read Master Shots. It's a great book, great series teaching you about cinematography if that's what you're into. So Connor Steen, what's up? He says, if I shoot primarily sports video, is it worth investing in a Sony cinema camera over something like the A7S III? It depends on what kind of sports videos you shoot. I think that you can definitely shoot sports videos on the Sony A7S III. It's just all about the lens that you get. So if you do a lot of sports videos, it's a good chance that you need a nice telephoto lens. So you probably need something like 70 by 200 or 100 to 300 or 100 to 400. So it's more about the lens than it is about the camera in that instance for sports. So just get a nice zoom lens that is a constant aperture of at least f2.8 with really good autofocus and that sort of thing, because sports are high action, quick moving. So yeah, you may not need a cinema camera for that. You just need a good lens, at least in my opinion. And I know a lot of sports guys use basically lenses with servo motors or built-in telephoto and wide rocker. So if you ever used a lens that has the little T and W on it, and you can just like, you know, and it'll zoom in and out, kind of like an old Sony dad cam or whatever. Those actually work really good for sports because you can smoothly zoom in and out really quickly. Boom, zoom in on the action. Boom, zoom back out, you know, catch that tackle or whatever it is. Thanksgiving's coming up. I got to get ready for the Turkey Bowl, man. We're doing like a productions one at work, a couple teams, and man, I got to get in shape for that Turkey Bowl. How about you guys? Are you celebrate Thanksgiving? You guys ready for that? Man, all right, getting on a tangent here. So let's get back into it. Zion Lim, what's up? He says, Pocket 4K or A7S III. Again, those two are hard to compare to each other because the Pocket 4K is really only built for video. In my opinion, the A7S III is a hybrid if you do photo and video, and it's twice the price, $3,500 versus about $1,200. So depending on your budget, no, it's not even twice the price. It's almost 3 times the price. So if you're on a budget, get the 4K. If you have unlimited funds, get the A7S III. You're getting full frame. You're just getting a lot of really great things out of it. You're getting ProRes RAW if you're shooting with an external recorder like the Ninja V. But again, that's going to cost you even more money. If you're on a budget, get the Pocket 4K. I think it's a great option there. So Peter Jolly says, I actually just got the Helios 442 in the mail today. I still have to get an adapter. Yeah. It always sucks waiting for some little product to get here, you know, in the mail so you can actually use it. It's exciting. You're like, woo, I got this new thing. And then you're just waiting for that little adapter or whatever it is to come so you can actually use it or mount it. So I totally get that. Excited for you to try it out. Zion says, I'm loving my vintage Takimer 55 1.8 for video and portraits. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I haven't personally used it. I have heard good things about it though. And 1.8 on a 55 millimeter, fantastic for portraits, like you said. So it's awesome. Lucas Holmes, what's up? Hello from New Zealand. Yeah, it's like it's morning time over there. The sun's rising here. It's all dark outside. It's almost 9 o'clock here. So welcome. I hope you have a great Tuesday there. It's still Monday here. Tyler Edwards, what's up, dude? It's always good seeing you on the live chat. Dude, if you guys want to see some really good stuff on the Pocket 4K, I believe it is, Tyler Edwards does a lot of stuff on Blackmagic cameras. Right? I think I'm right in saying that. So check him out. Good stuff. George, I hope I'm saying that right. George Elizalde from San Francisco. What's up? How's it going over there? I'm sure the weather's much better there than it is here. It's like 90 degrees. So thanks for joining the live stream. And I'm just kind of going down the chat here. I'm going to get to as many of them as I can. If you guys are watching and you haven't hit subscribe yet, hit subscribe right now. You got to do it. You got to do it. All right. Jeff Cools, he says, what piece of gear did you buy and regret and why? Yeah, that's what this whole live stream has been about, right? What camera gear is still worth getting and what can you live without? So what's something that I've bought and regretted? That's a really good question. I think this is going to be a controversial one, but I do have it on the list as like a you can maybe live without, but also I use them frequently. I shouldn't even say it, but I'm gonna say it. A gimbal, all right? I said it. I love gimbals, but also I don't use them extremely frequently. I think it's not a total specialty item, okay? I do use it a lot, but mostly when I'm shooting events or like a wedding or something, because you got to be able to move around quickly and get shots. But if I'm not doing that sort of thing and I'm shooting like a little commercial or a narrative piece, it's not as frequent that I'm using a gimbal, because all those moving shots end up looking really floaty and that sort of thing. So I don't use them as frequently, but I still love my gimbal. I still do use it a lot. So would I say that I regret buying a gimbal? No, because I do use it enough, but I do think it's a specialty thing that if you don't use, if you don't shoot with it enough, it may not be something you need. Just get a good tripod, do handheld, that sort of thing. But once you have the money, maybe move up and buy a gimbal. I still use them a lot. I do, but I think it's not totally necessary for everyone to have one. Farouk says, he says, I'm into documentary, music videos, wedding photography, and budget of around $2,500. So my target was the R6 because it's kind of easy to get Canon glass to rent here, and I'll love to have the full frame. Says, but the release of the Lumix S5, I'm kind of rethinking the EOS R6, but I have to get lenses here in Ghana. It's my worry, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so yes, so if you're doing like documentaries, weddings, all that sort of thing, and your budget's like $2,500, the R6, I think that's a good place to go. Like you said, the Canon EF lenses are really easy to get. They're probably, that's probably the most common lens mount out there. But what I would say is that I just struggle with Canon because I feel like they still kind of throttle their cameras a little bit to where they limit their capabilities. I don't know. I don't know if I would get it, but I think it's a good basic camera. Not a basic camera. It's a really nice camera, but I think it could be a good starting place for you if you just want a nice full frame camera. I would steer away from the Lumix S5, and the only reason I would steer away from that is because it's a specialty lens mount and there's not a lot of lenses for it yet, and it's going to be harder to adapt and everything like that. So yeah, going with a Canon EF mount, probably a better place to go. Or maybe get a used Sony a7S II. Those are going to be going for so much cheaper now. You're still getting full frame. They're great for music videos, wedding photography, everything like that. So still the Sony a7S II or the a7 III or the a7C, if you're into Sony cameras, are all fantastic full frame cameras that you can get great images out of. But Sony glass, I would say, is almost as easy and abundant to find as Canon glass. So just depends. Maybe I'm not sure in Ghana, maybe it's harder to get Sony glass than it is Canon. So that's up to you. Max Soda, what's up, dude? Welcome back. He says, what do you think of the original Blackmagic in 2013 for $500? Yeah, I wouldn't get it. We talked about this earlier in the live stream. We've been on for a while now. It's been almost an hour. I wouldn't get that camera anymore. I don't think the battery life is very good on it. I think it has a lot of limitations. It's getting pretty outdated. I mean, 2013 was 7 years ago, and cameras are updating. Like, you're seeing a new camera every couple weeks, every couple months. At this point, find a used Blackmagic Pocket 4K if you can. I don't think that camera's worth it anymore. In my personal opinion, people still get good stuff out of it, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think it's time to put it to rest. What's up, Adam? He says, budget between $5,000 to $6,000. Struggling between the Pocket 6K and the Canon EOS R5 or R6. Blackmagic colors and codecs as cine features versus Canon autofocus as a pro. Is autofocus, the trump all or that sort of thing? So thanks in advance. That's hard. Between the Pocket 6K and the EOS R5, R6, obviously both of them are Canon EF mount, so you're going to be using the same glass. So it depends what lenses do you already have. Obviously, you're going to be able to use those lenses on either of them. If you rely on autofocus, so let's say you do just like a lot of gimbal work, maybe you need autofocus if you do a ton of gimbal work. If you're not doing a lot of gimbal work and you're more stationary, you're doing a lot of talking head interviews, a lot of stuff that's more locked off on a tripod or maybe on a slider, then you don't need so much autofocus, and the Pocket 6K might be a better camera for you, especially because you're getting B-RAW. You can change your ISO in post-production. You can change your white balance in post-production. There's a lot of leeway. It's a great camera for shooting in 6K. So obviously you have a great big LCD in the back, 5-inch. So for me personally, I would probably get the Pocket 6K. I know there's all the issues with overheating on, the EOS R cameras, the R6 and everything. And overheating is a big issue. I know people are saying, they overhyped that. You know, all the YouTubers and reviewers overhyped overheating. They didn't overhype it. Have you ever been on a shoot and your camera overheats and you literally have to stop shooting? That's a disaster. When you have clients there and talent and you're like in the middle of a shoot or an interview and all of a sudden your camera goes down and you're like, sorry to interrupt. The camera died. Can we just wait like 10, 15 minutes for it to cool down? Yeah, they said we got to wait like 20 minutes before we can roll again. And when we can roll again, we can only roll for like 15 minutes. Is that cool? No. No paying client is going to be cool with that. And if you miss a shot at a wedding or something, it's a disaster. They do overheat. Some of my cameras overheat and they don't have overheating issues. You know, obviously I live in Arizona. It's insanely hot here. It's like 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer. So everything overheats. Your cars overheat. My body overheats. Anyways. So yeah, personally, I'd probably get the Pocket 6K. If a camera has a large crippling feature like that, like overheating, even though some people are like, hey, you've kind of overworked that and overdone that. No, if it has something like that, that's not going to be worth it to me. All right, Zachary says, thanks for advice on 8mm. Would you ever take the jump into medium format? I would love to shoot on medium format, but it's very expensive to do. I think it's Fuji, I can never remember the name of it, like the GX1000 or whatever it is, medium format. Looks awesome, but it's also like a $5,000 camera, or is it $10,000? I can't remember. It's very expensive, and it doesn't have all the other useful features. It just has a really good medium format, large sensor. So no, I probably won't be doing medium format anytime soon unless Sony or something or Blackmagic releases a more affordable medium format camera. Justin, what's up? He says, Komodo or C70? Man, I'd probably go Komodo personally, just because I love the look of reds. I've shot on reds before. I love red code raw. I love that little form factor. The 4" by 4" form factor is just so freaking cool. That small little cube. But again, the price on both of those, it's out of my price range right now. But if you could find one to rent, I think it'd be great to shoot on either of them. Alv Raleigh, what's up? He says, what's your opinion on the zero distortion Laowa lens? Yeah, so Laowa, I've only shot on the probe lens. I haven't shot on any of the other Laowa lenses, but I understand that they do a fantastic job of straightening out the lines, and when you're shooting on really wide angle and things look really good. I know Caleb Pike over at DSLR Video Shooter, super cool dude, love him. But he's done a lot of reviews on the Laowa lenses, and it looks like they straighten out those lines pretty well, so they're not super warped. So yeah, maybe check out some of his, but I think they're great lenses. VTC Webster, thanks for subscribing, dude. George, thanks for subscribing. I'm seeing now, I said earlier, hey, subscribe, and everyone's just saying, I subscribe. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. Man, the comments just updated here, and I feel like I just missed like a million things. Everyone's going, gimbal. Oh my gosh. Gimbals are essential. I'm an essential worker. The gimbals are in the back room crying, I'm an essential worker. Can't send me home. No, I love gimbals. I do. I'm realizing now I'm just getting to this. Gimbals are awesome. I do use them, but I don't use them nearly as frequently as I just use a basic tripod. So you got me there. Matt Vincini says on-cam mics are laughed at in sound school. Yeah, I haven't been to sound school, but I definitely got to say that an onboard shotgun microphone, not that useful. So that's funny. VTC Webster says, what about an off-camera shotgun mic on a boom pole with a boom operator? Yes, of course. If you got a little shotgun mic, you put it on a boom pole, get it right next to your talent. Of course, proximity is everything. The closer you get to that microphone, the better it sounds. So yes, no problem with that. Just don't have it on the camera, and then the camera be 10 feet away from your talent. That's never going to sound good. Yeah, so let's see here. J Full Film says the Ronin M is good. Relax. It's a good gimbal. I can't even say it. It does the job. It gets the job done, but I hate it. You can't put it down. It's so heavy, and you can never put it down. You gotta have a stand with you all the time. Tim Butt 2 says Steadicam is still my favorite. Yeah, I mean, I started out on the GlideCam HD 2000, and it was definitely a learning curve. It was harder to balance, but it gives you a really nice fluid motion when you're floating around with that. That's not electronic looking at all. It looks much more organic. And if you look at large scale Hollywood productions, almost all of them are still shooting on Steadicams. Now they're way more expensive Steadicams than we have access to, but they have to use something like that because they're rigging out an Arri or a red camera or something like that. And those camera packages are heavy, like 20, 30, 40 pounds, whatever it is. So they have to use Steadicams because there's almost no gimbals out there right now that can even support that weight. They are getting better. I know Movi Pro can support pretty heavy ones. We've used those in the past. But yes, Steadicams are still definitely industry standard on Hollywood productions. So that's awesome. J-Full Films, the Ronin S is stupid, not the Ronin M. Good stuff. I love the battle. So, Peter Jolly says, the studio I'm interning at has a Ronin M, but we ended up using my own gimbal instead, which films really cool to have something better than a professional studio. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the studio that I'm working for right now, we finally got a Ronin S, but before that I was bringing my own crane gimbal because I just couldn't stand the Ronin M. I just tried to avoid it at all costs. Yeah, Timbut says he loves the Steadicam with the Ursa Mini Pro. Yeah, absolutely. If you're using a large camera like that, you're probably going to have to be using a Steadicam. Let's see. Watrix says the Sigma MC11 is much better than the Metabones. Yeah, I've heard really good things about the Sigma MC11 adapter for adapting glass onto your camera. But I haven't tried it. I haven't tried the Metabones yet either, but I've heard good things about both. And I think the Sigma MC is quite a bit cheaper. So yeah, check that out if you're looking into adapters. Peter Jolly says, silly question, but lens adapters with no elements, will they change the lens focal length or equivalence? Not really. Basically, if you're using an adapter, let's say, and this is going to get all scientific, I'm going to be like Gerald Undone over here. Let's talk about flange distance. So basically, if you're using a mirrorless camera, okay, let's say that this phone is my mirrorless camera, and you have a Sony lens, well, it goes directly up onto it, right? Because the sensor and the way that that flange distance needs to be very close to the sensor, so that basically the image circle that the lens is projecting fits perfectly around the sensor. But for Canon EF glass and other ones that aren't mirrorless, they need more space between the sensor and the lens. And so there's this like bit of distance, right? It's about a half an inch, and you have the adapter usually in between there. So it's actually not changing the focal length of the lens really at all. It's just allowing the lens to sit the right distance from the sensor. So that's the flange distance. So hopefully that answers your question. No, you don't change the focal length by adding that adapter. Now you may change the focal length if you use something that has a glass element inside of it, like the speed boosters, which say, hey, it gives you more of a full frame equivalent or whatever it is. So yes, that will change the field of view, but something with no lens elements in there and it's simply just a dead adapter, that's not going to change your field of view at all. Tim Butt says, Atlas is nice, very soft at wide open. Cook anamorphics are my favorite. Yeah, absolutely. Shooting on the Atlas, I love those. Done a full review of them. They are pretty soft, wide open. They still look gorgeous though, but Cook anamorphics, that would be the way to go. They're just very expensive to rent and they're almost impossible to own. So, man, I'm really realizing that I'm way behind in the comments here. So I'm just going to have to catch up to you guys. We start getting into all the different anamorphic lenses and everything. Try and speed down here. Talking about the DZO film picture zooms. I would love to pick those up and try them out. I've been in communications with them asking if I can just get a unit to review and send back to them, but they've kind of gone cold on me. So if I can get my hands on them, I'll test them out. Tim Butt says Rokinon lenses are the worst. He hates them. That's okay. They're not for everyone. I own a lot of Rokinon glass. I find that they're pretty clean. They do the job pretty well, but I know they're not for everyone. They can have a slight green tint to them, which is not great. Let's see what else is going on. Anoop says, hey man, what about camera sliding systems with pan tilt heads like Rhino or Edelkrone? This is controversial, guys, but I'm going to say it. let's put that in the gear you can live without category. So there's a ton of camera gear that you really need and you got to have. I would say that a slider is something that is definitely worth getting. After you get a tripod, a slider is probably the next best thing. But like having electronic tilt and pan head, not totally necessary. You can do all that manually. As long as you have a good fluid head that you put on top of your slider, you can get nice arcing shots and everything. You just do it with your hands. Does a great job. The only place that I think that electronic sliders and, panning, tilting heads and everything like that really come into place is if you're doing a lot of basically time lapses. If you got to do time lapses where you got to set the camera down and just let it run and you want it to be perfect, then yes, get a fully motorized system. But they're very expensive. Edelkrone and everyone like that, they're like $2,000 and above, usually above that once you start fully rigging it out with all the parts and pieces that you need. So yeah, I would say get something manual. And if you really find that you need something electronic, go from there. The only place where I'd say it's nice to have, and a lot of times we do use these when we're doing interviews as a master shot, we set up the slider to go back and forth and just kind of arc, and get a nice parallax of a master shot on an interview. But again, we don't even use that frequently. The system I'm using at work is a Dana dolly with a fully motorized pan and tilt head. Is very expensive though, and it's not something that you absolutely have to have. You can just have a camera operator doing that. So something you can probably live without, put it in that category. Cool to have though if you have the budget. Wadrick says, I actually own the Zeiss Super Speed and I need wide angle lens to fill in a gap. 25 millimeter might do the job from Vespid. Yeah, so 25 millimeters is just, I'd say, is like the tail end of wide angle. If you can go a little bit more wide angle than that, depending on if you're shooting on APS-C, I might go a little bit wider, like 16 to 20 millimeters, maybe 18. Stephen Knott, what's up? He says, just got here. Have you seen the big B&H sale on Sony lenses and Sony's rebate on lenses? I haven't seen that, but I'll check that out. You guys check that out. Stephen Knott saying there's a big sale on lenses at B&H. Might be a time to get that lens you've been looking for or something. So that's cool. All right, keep going down here. Yeah, tons of comments. I've been trying to keep track of everything that's going on. Nelkin Nisbet, he says, how's the A6400 for your first camera ever? Yeah, I'd say the Sony A6400 is a great camera to start with. If you're doing like a lot of basic shoots, talking head, and you just want a nice, simple Sony camera, that's a really good starter camera, and it's not very expensive. I'm shooting on the Sony A6500 right now for this live stream. I love using this camera because the autofocus is great, and it just does a good job for basic stuff. But when I'm shooting client work, I don't use this camera really because it's still 8-bit, and it doesn't give me as good of color science and everything like that. But otherwise, great camera to start with. I love it. So, man, we've been going on for an hour and 23 minutes. Do you guys still want me to keep going or what? Let me know. Hit me with the like button if you're liking this, or comment. And there's almost 100 of you guys watching still, so I really appreciate that. Hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This has been a great live stream tonight. Happy to be back in the new studio with you guys. Try and get through all your comments, and we'll keep going for just a little bit longer. All right, so Mario says, what would you pick between the red Epic Mysterium or the Blackmagic Pocket 6K? It depends. How much can you get the red Mysterium for, and are you willing to spend the budget you need to fully rig it out? Because you got to get everything you need, like the red mag cards, which are just crazy expensive memory cards, V-mount battery systems, viewfinders, like all the different things you need to rig it out. So it depends if you have the budget to do that. Otherwise, I'd just get the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, world's longest name for a camera. And, it has B-RAW, which is similar to Red Code RAW. It's not as good, but has similar features. So yeah, personally, I'd probably get the Pocket 6K. All right, let's keep going here. Sieb says, thoughts on the Canon C70? I don't know. I personally probably wouldn't get it, but it looks like it has some great features. I'm not a huge Canon guy. I know that might scare some of you guys off, but my first camera, my first DSLR bought was the Canon Rebel T3i. But I feel like everything they did, even though that was an entry-level camera, was just crippling. There was no like video features built in besides just being able to roll a video in 1080p. You don't have zebras. You don't have any false colors or anything like that. So it bothered me. I'm sure the C70 has a lot of those features, but I've just kind of gotten a bad taste in my mouth around a lot of the Canon stuff. Changed my mind. Maybe I'm wrong, but I won't be going back to Canon for a while. I've been loving the stuff from Sony and Fuji and Blackmagic and that sort of thing. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. So anyways, let's see what's going on here. All right, Jeff Cools, he says, what's the next investment in gear you want to buy? And if money wasn't a factor, what's your dream camera setup? Oh man, good question. So next investment in camera gear, man, I don't even know. I feel like there's always something to be getting, but it would probably be something to do with lighting, honestly. I talk about this a lot on the channel, but I think lighting is probably the most important thing out there. It's what makes your camera look good. Whatever you're lighting and projecting onto the sensor is what looks the best. So that'd probably be my next thing. Dream camera setup right now, I gotta say it's gotta be the Red Komodo. I think it's the best budget entry level Red camera if I were to do it. So yeah. Tommy Calloway, what's up? He says, always buy lights. Yes, that's what I was just saying. Love this guy. Tommy, dude, we got to get together, man. We got to do some lighting stuff. If you're watching me right now, let's do it, man. Lighting is where it's all at. All right. Nanita Films, he said, I made my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera with your video, bro. Awesome. It's still a great camera. It's definitely a good starting camera. So that's awesome. Let's see here. Let's see, talking about the Red, they tend to crash. Yeah, they do have a little bit more software issues. There's just a lot of stuff going on in them. But I think they've worked out a lot of those kinks in the newer Red cameras. All right, continuing on down here. So yeah, Tim Butt says lights and lenses are the best investment. Absolutely. And a good tripod. Yeah. So again, what this whole live stream has been about, right? Camera gear worth getting versus camera gear that you can live without. Lenses, got to have them. Good lights, got to have them. Tripod, got to have them. And you can have them for decades. You can use them for a very long time and they work great. And you can change out your camera body as you need to. But those investments will last for a very, very long time. So I definitely think it's worth it. All right, so let's keep going here. There's just too many comments. I can't keep up. All right, Pablo, he says, what's your opinion on the Sony a7C? Haven't tried it yet, but I have shot on the Sony a7 III, and pretty much I believe it's the exact same sensor. So if you like the Sony a7 III and the look of it, go for the a7C. It's smaller, much tighter package like the Sony a6400, 6500, 6600, that whole smaller line. So I think it's really cool. I'm not going to be getting it, I don't think, just because I already have the a6500 and I don't need a full frame in this body right now. But I think if you're looking for full frame, it's the most affordable full frame. It's one of the most affordable full frame cameras out there with good autofocus. So if that's what you're going for, full frame with good autofocus, get the Sony a7C. I don't know, maybe I'll get my hands on it. It's still really exciting to me. I love that it has the flip up screen. I think there's a lot of really good stuff about it still. So, all right. Yeah, just a lot of stuff going on down here, talking about the Laowa lenses, steady cams, all that stuff. All right, Richard Copier, what's up? He says, I had anxiety last night after I bought the Tokina 11 to 20 millimeter for my Red Komodo because it's opened a whole new rabbit hole to all the new V&D accessories I may need. Yeah, so that looks like an awesome lens, dude. Let me know how that goes. I've been looking at the Tokina 11 to 20 millimeter as well because I think it's just a really good focal length, like on the wide angle side for the Red Komodo. 11 millimeters is pretty wide though. I think that's like what, 18 millimeters on a full frame equivalent. So it's very wide, but pretty cool. Let me know how that goes. That's an expensive lens. I think it's like $2,000 to $3,000. Let me know how that goes. Yeah, all the variable ND filters you're going to need. Yeah, you'll definitely want to just get a good variable ND filter on there. I'd probably go with, the classics like the Peter McKinnon one, if it'll fit on the front lens element of that. I don't know the screw thread size on that. Try that one out. Or the matte box from Polar Pro is fantastic. So I would definitely check that one out. And I think it'd work great. So, Tommy Calorie says, I kind of push and review lights all the time. Probe lens seemed fitting. Lots of lights. Try and get f40 properly exposed. Jeez. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can, with those probe lenses, you have to stop way down for it actually to be in focus. That's kind of funny to use them with lights. I could see that. Cool stuff. Richter says, I got the Weebill S because Sony IBIS isn't that great, but finding I barely use it. Thank you. Someone agreeing with my thoughts on gimbals. You don't use them as much as you think you would. You still use them. I still do use them frequently, but not an insane amount. So, 412 says, hey, Chad, can you recommend any mini tripods? That's a good question. How many are we talking about here? We're talking about like tabletop ones, like dinky ones, or like travel size ones? I'd say if you're going for a travel size, there's some good ones from iFootage. If you're looking for like teeny tiny little tabletop ones, Manfrotto makes a great standard that I love. Just like a little tiny one that you can just put on a desk or whatever. Check out those. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Trying to keep up. All right, so Tim Butt says, I hope the Aperture and Nanlite or Godox creates a 1K soon. That would be awesome. I'd love to see a really powerful 1K LED light that's affordable. That'd be really cool. Man, this live stream has gone on really long, and I'm just having a ton of fun with you guys. I don't want to stop it. I do want to say this, though. Something that I'm going to, while we're on the topic of lights, something that I've got to say in the gear category you can live without, and I'm just going to throw this out there for you guys because I think it's helpful. The Aperture MC light. It's the teeny tiny little LED light. It's completely useless. I'm just kidding. Okay, it's not completely useless. That's rude. But come on. I mean, yeah, the output on it is decent and you can get RGB and it's kind of fun to play with, but to me it's more of a toy. When you're doing actual commercial work in cinematography, that sort of stuff, client work, that teeny little light is like useless. I need a key light. I need a good hair light and backlight and everything. It's just not that useful. So that is one that I wanted to throw out into the gear you can live without. There's so many companies right now putting out these teeny tiny little LED lights, like endless amounts. I keep seeing them from all different companies. Hey, our new little RGB LED light. I'm like, cool. That's useless. Like, what the heck? I need at least a 1x1 or a 2x1 LED light, something powerful. Or a Fresnel light, something that's actually going to give me some really good output to light up a couple people or a scene or a background or whatever. These teeny tiny little LED lights, like that's good for like lighting up like one little product. It's like, oh, okay, I put a light on that. That's it. So save your money. Don't waste your money on those. There's a lot of hype around it and I'm just like, nah, not going to get one. And we have them at work and I'm just like, no, get that away from me. Nah. All right. Let's check it out. So a couple more things going on here. Tommy Calloway says Zeepon Micro 2 is the best manual slider he's ever used. I haven't used it yet, but they've reached out to me a couple of times asking me to do a review of it and check it out and whatever. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I've used a lot of sliders and I own a couple sliders and I have access to a bunch, and I'm just kind of like, how can one slider be that much different than the next? I don't know. I'll have to check it out maybe if you really like it. I would be interested. He says the Rhino Arc 2 is a big price jump. Yeah, it is. Any of the electronic sliders get really expensive really quick, and it's not all that worth it. Debunk 88 says electronic sliders are way better. Doing things manually sucks. You can never move slow enough without jitters. Yeah, I get that. If you're doing like really close up product shots and things like that, having that electronic slider is really nice to have, but holy crap, it's expensive. You just got to finesse it. You can finesse the slide and just pan it just right and get those shots. You can do it. It just takes a lot of practice and patience. If you have the money, go for the electronic slider. But I've even found, though, sometimes those can have a little bit of jitters in them. Can look a little bit electronic, almost like a gimbal, and that's not always great. So there is some give and take to that. They're not always perfect. Let's see. Talking about lights, powerful lights. Man, trying to keep up. Let's see here. What else is going on? Universe Cycle, what's up? He says, advanced phone cameras. What are your thoughts on filmmaking in the future? Yeah, of course. I mean, like, they're improving the cameras on these phones constantly. The new iPhone has the best camera. The new Google phone has Android phone has the best camera. I would still say if you're doing this work paid for clients and stuff, that a smartphone is not the best option. There's just way too many limitations. It can't do nearly the amount of things that a DSLR or mirrorless or cinema camera can do. Obviously, everyone has them. You can get great images out of them. But if you want to do this professionally and get paid to do it for a long time, I wouldn't say that like investing in the next phone because you think it has a better camera is worth it. Yeah, Timbut says Dana Dolly is my preferred slider. I agree. If I'm doing a big shoot, Dana Dolly is the way to go. That's what we have at work. You can put really large, heavy cameras onto it. All right. He says, talk about DaVinci Resolve 17. I haven't tried the beta yet, so I'm going to get to that. Yeah, Peter Jolly says these live streams always seem to turn into Q&As. I'm sorry. There's always so many Q&As. I'm trying to stay on topic as much as I can, but it ends up being like constant Q&As. Yeah, so talking about gear carts, they're awesome to have, Jeff. I agree with that. VTC Webster says he also started out on the Rebel T3i. I totally agree. Trying to catch up on the comments here. All right. Just going to scroll down as far as I can because we are like kind of getting to the end. All right. So, let's see. Yeah, Adam Johnson says, yes, lighting is key. Do you need to spend $1,000 on the Aperture 120D setup, or is there a less expensive equivalent? Yeah, so I think that the 120D, that's an awesome light, super powerful, but also pretty expensive. I mean, it's like $1,000 or more. I think it's around $1,200 or so for that camera. I don't have one. I think it's just a little bit too expensive. Here's a great light to check out if you want something similar in power. Check out the ETC Source 4, okay? But we're talking about the originals here. They are tungsten. They get really hot. They're not an LED, but they're extremely powerful spotlights, and you can shape them with the different, shutters on them, and you can drop gobos into them, so different patterns for like blinds, windows, things like that. Super cool. It's one of my favorite lights. I own 2 of them. You can find them used for like $50 to $70, maybe $100, something like that. So check those out. It's much less expensive than the Aperture lights, and they're just as powerful. They're just not LED. So Peter Jolly says, I'm so glad I took a lighting class, because I definitely agree that lighting is way more important than people think. Absolutely. If you want to improve your cinematography, I can't say this more, learn how to light, buy more lights, invest in lighting, practice lighting more frequently. Whatever you're shooting, if it's lit really ugly, it doesn't matter what camera you're using. You could use the nicest cinema camera possible. It's not going to look good if you don't light it well. So definitely invest in lighting and making stuff actually look really good. Let's see. Nelkin Nisbet says he was actually looking at the GVM 80 watt light because it's cheap enough and simple enough to start off. Absolutely. Some of the first lights I bought were cheap LED light panels, I think from Newer, and they were really cheap. A great light to start off with. Whatever you can afford, go with that, and you can upgrade from there as you can afford it. So yeah, no problem there. Mirage Kaimo says, hey, don't hate on my MC. The Aperture light, man. I'm telling you, I don't know why they're trying so hard to convince everyone that they need these teeny tiny little LED lights. They're almost completely useless, except for like a little accent light on some plant in the background or something. Nelkin says, do you need an SSD to start off with? No, you do not. You can record internally on the Blackmagic cameras. You only need an external SSD if you want to have a ton of space to shoot onto. So you don't need one. Let's see, talking about the NAND light, it's great. Tommy says small lights aren't always meant to be key lights. If you design your scene with intention, small lights are super handy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that those little MC lights are good for like little items, basically like a set piece. If you're like, hey, I just need to light up this little set piece a little bit more, I think they could be good. But otherwise, I don't think that they're something that you have to have. You're not going to be pulling it out that frequently, but maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. Let's see. Richter Rat says, since you brought up the Polar Pro matte box, what are your thoughts on the new sub $100 small rig matte box they have been advertising on pre-order? Yeah, so I would say that the new small rig matte box, I love all the controversy on this. This is hilarious. Are you guys on the Facebook group for small rig? If you're not, you should be on there because it's funny. Everyone's like debating right now about the graphic on the top of the matte box flag. It literally says matte box. And it's like the stupidest thing ever because it's like, we know it's a matte box. Why'd you write matte box on the top? It's like putting on the side of the camera design camera. It's like, duh. We know what it is. Yeah, so the new small rig matte box I think is really good. I think it's might be better. This is controversial, but it might be better than the Tilta mini matte box because that one only allows for larger filters and those are much more expensive. But the small rig one looks like it takes just standard 4x4 filters, which if you're in that world of 4x4 filters, then that's a great way to go. And it's so affordable. But the great thing about the Polar Pro matte box is that you could put that variable ND filter into there. It's very small and light. It's just a little bit more expensive, but the NDs are really good, high quality, and it fits in there so perfectly. Nice, tight, compact. So I really like that. Tommy Calloway says, how about if you need a phone screen to light an actor's face? Don't think a 1K tungsten is the answer. I can agree with that. But I would say if you need like a phone screen, I mean, there are some lights that you can use that are smaller, maybe like a 1 foot tube light or something like that, and you can, dim that down or whatever as a phone light. But yeah, I mean, there are some places where you could use those little MC aperture lights, but I'm going to kick back. I still think they're not that useful. I mean, how many times are you filming a scene where you need a phone screen? I mean, just use the phone to light them up. I don't know. I think they're a little bit overhyped and everyone's coming out with them. I just low a little bit. Yeah, the Orlando guy, what's up? Good to see you back in the live stream. He says, camera gear, I need to get camera slider. Yes, get one. It's one of the first pieces of gear I bought after a tripod. It was a camera slider, and you just got to get good shots. So Tim Butt says, love shooting with the Source 4 lights, but they do get hot. Yes, if you're going to get a Source 4, ETC Source 4, original tungsten one, they get insanely hot. Wear gloves because you will burn yourself. I have burned myself moving that light fixture too many times because I keep forgetting to put gloves on. The new ET Source 4 LED fixtures are freaking awesome and they don't get super hot. They're RGB, they're beautiful lights, but they're also incredibly expensive. We have like 7 or 8 of them at the studio that I work with. They're all rigged on the ceiling. So fun to work with, but they're just not affordable for like an owner operator to have. But if you can afford the LED versions, go for it. Keith says, came here not wanting to buy more gear, leaving wanting to buy more lights. I blame Tommy. He's down in the comments saying, buy this light. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so no, that's what this whole stream has been about. If you guys have been sticking out, I think this is the longest live stream I've ever done. We're almost on 2 hours. What is happening, guys? What is happening? Camera gear, you can live without. Camera gear you need. Remember, what you own right now is probably good enough to get the job done. You can do great stuff with the camera you have, the lights that you have, but there are some good things to invest in, and I think they're cameras, like a good camera that shoots 4K, tripod with a fluid head, a good lens, and good lights. Other than that, a lot of the other things are just fluff on top. And a good microphone. I know I talked about shotgun mics and not being that good for onboard, so go with a good external microphone like a lavalier for basic interviews, or a nice shotgun microphone that you're going to use on a boom pole for good audio. There's just some great basics along with an ND filter. You got to have an ND filter, whether it's a variable ND filter or solid ND filters. Those are must-haves in my opinion, so you can keep a good motion blur and shutter speed and everything like that. So those are things to have. Everything else is a little bit of fluff like we talked about earlier. I know I'm getting distracted, kind of off topic with all the questions, but that's the main takeaway from this live stream. If you guys have been with me from the beginning, comment below. I'd love to know. Have you guys been watching the whole stream? And if you have, hit subscribe because you guys are awesome and you got to stick around. All right. Let's see. I'm going to try and keep up with everyone here in the comments. Josh Lang, he says, I'm a beginner. I have the Sony a6400, et cetera, small Godox flash. He wants to know what essentials to buy and what should I sell, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, essentials, if you don't have a slider, maybe grab a slider. I would get a good light though. It looks like you said you have a flash. Get a good LED 1x1 light panel. There's a ton of different ones out there in all different price ranges. Falcon Eyes makes some really affordable ones. Yeah, I would definitely check that out. So Tommy, thanks for stopping by, dude. I'll catch you later. He says he's got to run. Let's catch up later. Let's talk lights, man. I love it. All right. Just going to keep diving into the rest of the comments, and then we'll kind of wrap this up, guys. I really appreciate everyone hanging out with me tonight. It's been a lot of fun. So, all right, let's see here. Yeah, so talking about different filter sizes with the 4x4 filters versus 4.5 by 5.65. Yeah, so Tim Butt says that it's definitely better when you get to a larger sensor size for having the 4 by 5.65. Yeah, I'd say that's true. If you're using really large lenses, you're going to need a larger filter, but 4x4 for the most part is going to cover it, especially because a lot of us are using photo lenses. A 4x4 should cover it inside of a matte box. But if you're getting to big cinema lenses, you're going to need the larger ND filters, which the new one from Small Rig can support. So I think that's cool. All right. So yeah, Keith says he's been checking out lights lately. New favorite piece of gear. Yeah, they're great. Keep getting lights. VTC Webster says, I agree with you, man. Those tiny MC lights are not that compelling to me. I don't know why, but I love big lights. I agree. Big lights, man. You got to have them. Just light everything up. Let's see. People talking about lenses. Nelkin says, do you need to buy extra light stands when you start? Yes. And by that, I mean buy C stands. Don't buy light stands. The cheap, like newer light stands are garbage. They can barely hold a heavy light. They're not very flexible. Buy C stands so that you can actually put big, heavy lights onto them. You can boom out the light onto an arm and get it behind an actor so it's not in the shot and everything like that. So buy C stands if you can afford them. There's some good entry-level ones, even from Newer and from Impact, that are sub $200. So yes, get C stands as well as the lights. But again, I'd say that's on the list of like gear that's still worth getting, C-stand and like grip equipment, as opposed to some of the other stuff we talked about earlier that you just don't need, like the latest GoPro or something. Keith says, glad I got to catch you on the live stream. Do you have a live stream schedule or is it just whenever? Yeah, man, it's pretty much just whenever. I'm trying to go live every week. I try to. I've taken a couple months off because I moved, built this new studio and this house and everything. So I'll try and make a more regular live stream schedule so you guys know when to hop on. But yeah, so what's up, Haidik? He says he just hopped on. How's it going, man? Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Yeah, he's talking about, Tim Butt is saying, I'm just catching up. I'm always behind on the chat. He's saying, yeah, get some extra C stands. Absolutely. Yep. For holding flags, nets, all that kind of stuff. All right. And then Nelkin's saying, is it worth it to get an umbrella? No, I wouldn't get an umbrella. An umbrella is really for people that are doing photography and using flashes and things like that. I don't think they're super great for continuous video work. Karezi Dog says a monitor is essential. Yes, I think a monitor is definitely one of the first accessories that you should buy. It's gear that's still worth getting in 2020. So you can frame up, get your good exposure and everything like that. Looks like there's some lights on sale from GVM we're hearing. That's nice. Let's see. Okay, Tim Butts brought up a good one here. Says, wireless monitor is a good option. I have the Holon Cosmos 600 transmitter receiver going into a small HD. Yes, I also have the Cosmos 600 from Hollyland. It's a really good transmitter. It's reliable, but I am going to have to put it into the gear you can live without compartment, especially if you're shooting solo or maybe just with a very small team of 1 or 2 people, because wireless transmitters get expensive and you really don't need them unless you're having someone wirelessly pull focus for you, which I do from time to time. But a lot of times I don't need a wireless focus puller, so I don't have to wirelessly transmit my image. Now, if I do need a director's monitor or a client monitor, it is nice to have the clients kind of off in more video village watching, so they're not hovering behind your camera and looking at your monitor. It's nice to be able to transmit that signal and have them watch from another spot. But do I think it's 100% necessary? No. It's something that you could probably live without. But if you're in an area where you're like, hey, you know what? I really need someone to pull focus remotely for me, or have a director's monitor or like a client monitor, that sort of thing, sure, invest in one, but I'm going to have to say it's something that you could probably save your money on for right now. It's definitely a nice kind of cream on top sort of thing. All right, we're kind of getting to the bottom of our stream questions here and stuff, and I want to get this wrapped up pretty soon. So, yeah, George says, I love your setups. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. More gear reviews and like setups and rigs and everything like that coming soon. So let's see. Can you tell the difference between 16-bit and 24-bit audio? I don't know. I'm not an audiophile. I definitely know when something sounds good and when it's peaking and when it's too quiet or soft, but I don't know that I could tell the difference between bit rates in audio. So check out, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name, but there's some really good channels on audio. Yeah, that's not me. I couldn't say too much about that. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Spandan the Beats, if you want to hit me up. Follow me on Instagram at Chadwin, and that's for anyone watching. Follow me on Instagram at Chadwin and DM me there. That's the best place to contact me personally, and we can talk more about whatever it is you have questions on. Yeah, so VTC Webster is talking about the newer light stands or C stands, saying he's checked them out. Yeah, they're solid. They're really solid. I have a couple of them. Newer and Impact both make great C stands that I think are worth it. All right, so Hide Case says having a bag case that can hold tripods, light stands, etc. is essential. Then I use a Pelican for all my camera gear, etc. Yeah, having a way to transport your gear is definitely essential. Keep it protected. I would say that is gear worth having. Protect your gear. So that's awesome. Kevin Chung says, is the M50 camera worth it? And should I buy an extra battery? Always buy an extra battery. Your batteries die when you don't want them to. So yes, Curtis Judd. Just seeing that now. He is great at audio. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so the Canon M50, let me get back to that. I think it's a decent starter camera. I wouldn't personally buy it. I'm not a Canon guy very much. I would probably get the Sony a6600 if I were to get any of these smaller ones, or maybe the Sony a7C. I know they're both more expensive, but I think they're more built for filmmakers than the Canon M50 is. All right, so last couple questions here. Ku Cinematographer says, how many camera bodies do you think is necessary to have or ideal to have on all around projects? You just need one. You only need one camera. You can definitely get the job with just one. I had only one camera for many years, and I did a ton of client work, paid work with it, and it does the job. If you can invest in two, it's always better to have two. It's a backup. It's another angle. It's great. But one gets the job done. Two, as I say, two is better than one. But no, I think it depends on the project, but one's enough to get the job done. Yeah, Tim Butt says he has two cameras for interviews. I totally agree with that. Having a second camera for interviews is really nice. You don't have to have it. The only problem is if you only have a single camera for an interview, you're going to be doing jump cuts, right? So let's say they mess up what they're saying, and then you want to skip to the next line or cut out all the fluff or the ums. You're all of a sudden jump cutting, like maybe zooming in, or you're just jump cutting without a zoom in, and that doesn't look as good as cutting to a B camera. So if you can afford it, get two cameras. So when someone messes up or you want to cut dialogue out or whatever, you can cut from the A camera to the side B camera, and it looks really fluid. It doesn't throw the viewer off and make it distracting. It basically hides the cut. So if you can't afford to, of course, go for it. But yeah, it's not always possible to do, especially when you're just starting out. All right. So yeah, a lot of people saying, hey, two cameras. Yeah, if you can afford it, go for it. But I'm going to put it into the gear you can live without category tonight, because you don't have to have two. you can do most of your jobs with just one, but obviously it's very convenient to have two for interviews. But yeah, thank you guys all so much for joining. It's been a ton of fun. We are coming up on 2 hours. It has been a crazy night. Please hit subscribe right now if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Thank you guys all so much for all the comments. It's been a blast just going through all this, and hopefully you did get something out of this. I know we were talking about camera gear that's still worth getting versus what you can live without. I tried to stay on track, but obviously there's just a ton of comments and questions and things. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'll try and get to the rest of your questions in the chat here after the stream is over. But again, thank you. Hit the like button, subscribe, go watch the last video on my channel all about the studio tour so you can see what I just built out here. And I will catch you guys in the next video and on the next live stream. Again, have a good night or whatever it is for time of day for you, and I will see you guys later. Adios.